Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to High Vibe in It. We are so happy and blessed to hang out with you guys again for another week of this epic podcast that you all know and love. So you're welcome and thank you for being here. We're excited. Today we have a really great guest. You may have read some of her best-selling books. She is awesome. Her name is Shannon Kaiser, like the hospital. We were just talking about this before we hopped on the call. All you West Coasters know what I mean. And Shannon Kaiser is a #1 international best-selling author. She's an empowerment coach and a spiritual mentor, and she has a new book called Return to You, which I'm sure we're going to chat about today. So yeah, we're just really excited to have Shannon on. So everyone, warm welcome. Snaps for Shannon. Thanks for being here.
It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yay.
Yes, of
Shannon,
course.
I know this has been a long time in the making, and I'm so happy to have your presence graced on our podcast. And I hope everybody can feel the great glow that you have already. I'm feeling it. And you just have such a bright energy. I see the sunflowers behind you, which does help, but I think most of it's all you.
Those are my favorite
Um,
type of flowers. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. And it's so funny because my husband just got me some for the first time, really ever. He's never got me sunflowers like yesterday or the day before. And now I see them there and they look
Aren't
exactly
they?
like
That's so
that.
special, right? Yeah.
It's
They just
so
make
such a
you can't not smile when you get them. Yeah.
yeah.
My name.
And for the first time ever, I planted them in my backyard. So it's a very
Ooh,
sunflower time in my life that I've never experienced before. So
perfect.
signs from the universe, sunflowers.
I
If you
think you
don't
bring up
have
a good
any,
point. Yeah. There's like a turning, right? I feel like people are stepping into joy and giving themselves
yeah.
permission more. And I feel it too. So happy to be
Yeah.
here.
Give yourself permission, guys. Okay,
Mhm.
Shannon.
And get some sunflowers.
And get some sunflowers. They really can do no wrong, really.
Yes,
And if
these
you,
were actually a gift from my neighbor. He works at a florist and they have overstock. And so I got those for free and I was like, it feels
oh,
like Christmas. And that's a gift from the universe.
it
That's right.
is. And I always feel so weird about having cut flowers in my house. I know it's just like a weird thing with me. So I just like, if you don't like that, just plant them because I did that too. And I am not the best gardener. I'm getting better, but I'm not like the best. And they bloomed perfectly. So like you can't mess it up and you should go bring some joy in your life. Anyway, Shannon, back to the topic of you. How did you get into what you do? Like what's your journey been like? And just kind of give us as much info as you want about your story and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, I absolutely love what I do. I feel like my purpose is to help people live and tap into their purpose. And I do that through books and retreats and courses and coaching. But I haven't always done this. I've been doing it for about 11 years. 11's a lucky number too, right? Angel number.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting enough, I was in a completely different career. I was climbing the corporate ladder, working in advertising in a different city, working with celebrities, flying all over the world. It looked like I had it all, but at night, it was a completely different story. I would cry myself to sleep. I actually thought everyone cried themselves to sleep. I thought that's just what being human was. And I inside was just suffering. I hated myself, couldn't look in the mirror, say anything nice to myself. I was silently suffering from eating disorders and drug addiction. And I knew something wasn't right. So I went to the doctor and she diagnosed me with clinical depression, which was actually a turning point for me. This was in 2009. I realized at that same time, I came home and I came across a quote by Jim Carrey, the actor, and it said, yeah, your depression is an avatar that you're tired of playing that character. And that resonated
Mm-hmm.
with me. I realized, yes, sometimes chemical imbalances are very much part of depression, and I'm very involved in mental health now, but at that time it was a cry that I wasn't being authentic to myself. I was just going through the motions of what the world thought I should do, and it was killing my soul. So I had a turning point and I said, I'm going to follow my heart. And every day since then, I've been following my heart, and it's led to a beautiful life where I literally am so in love with life and what I do and connecting with people.
That's amazing.
Mm.
Well, your story, I know that in your travels and in your experience, you probably know by now that your story really isn't that uncommon when you think of like some of the best people we've had here on the podcast and just that I've met in general have come from like corporate and they're like, I just woke. It's one of the best ways to wake up because
It is.
it's
It's
so
like knock knock.
it's so draining and when your entire existence is to serve something else that you probably don't even believe in. It is a really big wake up call. And Jim Carrey, is very wise. Everything I read from him, he just gets it. I feel like
He
he
does. Yeah.
he's here to just take the information, distill it, and deliver it to people who may not listen to a spiritual podcast, or they may not, if they watch his movies or are a fan of him, then they're getting that. But I also said Will Smith was wise, and then he slaps someone in public. So
I
I
know we
don't
gotta
know.
be.
I
It's
don't
like
want to jinx it.
It's like
Jim Carrey.
discernment all the time. I was gonna use a meme the other day. I was like, well, can't use him anymore.
I know. I'm not trying to Jim Carrey, please be careful. Don't make me regret saying this, but he is, everything I see from him, he just gets it. So I love that quote and so many others that he said. And I'm glad that it showed up for you, I think, in just right timing, right?
And that's how it works, right? Always the
Mhm.
right timing if we pay attention to the signs and the kind of nudges from the universe.
Oh, wow. That is so cool.
Yeah, I think asking for help is a big part of it too. And, I had a full surrender. I came home that night and I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep living the life that doesn't feel good. And that was kind of my call to the universe. Like, I'm ready for more. And we all have a different version of what that looks like. And it doesn't always have to be rock bottom. It doesn't always have to be a disassociation with corporate. I think our souls, and that's what I talk about in my new book, Return to You, our souls are on a very united journey to grow, right? We all have our own path, and it's kind of fun to honor what's opening up for you. I like to say, what is emerging? Rebecca Campbell says, what's falling away? It's kind of this idea of what is coming into your life and honoring that.
Yeah. And to be clear, if it is rock bottom, that's great. That's cool. That's good. That's not like, there's no wrong way to bloom, I think. And I think just embracing that in general, if you what there's something that's coming through, and I don't know if English is compatible. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to try to say it. Some people are pressed right into blooming, and some people kind of just realize and rise up to what they want to bloom to. But neither way is
there's
correct.
No wrong.
Neither way is wrong. Neither way is right. Neither way is going to get you anywhere different than where you're supposed to be. Just allowing that process to, I love this, to bloom, right? I can't stop looking at those flowers, and that's just the thing that's coming to my brain. So everybody does that in their own way.
It is about blooming. And, I think it's the Buddha quote, or, in that Eastern philosophy, they talk a lot about suffering as a choice, and we can choose to suffer, or we can ultimately use the experiences that are happening to us to rise up and see there's a greater lesson. But I also, again, to quote another person I love, Elizabeth Gilbert, she has a quote that's, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, where she said, I never saw a transformation that didn't start with somebody getting sick of their own bullshit. Yeah. And that resonated, because we have to get out of our own way no matter where we're at. It's about, I'm going to the next level of my life, and I'm going to choose to make myself healthier, happier, and it's a process.
That realization and decision is everything, really.
I feel like what we're talking about is really the beauty of the pain threshold, and hitting your own personal pain threshold, where you're like, okay, this is where it ends. Like, this is where we start the upward trajectory. And kind of how you said you made that almost like a declaration to the universe. I'm just resonating so much with your story, because I have a very similar one, where I was stuck in a depressive episode for 3 years. And then I was like, universe, help. I don't feel like I'm meant to just be miserable. This doesn't make sense. I need to figure out how to enjoy my life. That's the only thing that matters now. I have to help me, please, And when you make that decision and you just commit to a new trajectory, you don't even have to know the how or the when or the where. You just have to commit to taking the one step in that new direction, which I
probably shouldn't know the how. We probably shouldn't know that.
Well, I think we get wrapped up,
in
right?
advance.
It's so true. We so get wrapped up. I see this in my coaching practice. I need to know how. How am I going to meet the man? How am I going to, it's like the how. But I always say the how is in the now. Go inward. What does your intuition say? What one step can I do? And that's actually how I transformed, left advertising. I didn't know at first I wanted to be a writer, but I went back to, what did I love to do as a child? I was the girl that sat at recess and colored and drew, and I would literally sit in the grass and write poetry, and I got made fun of so much, but it was my joy. And so I went back to, well, I love nature and I love writing, and that became my career now. And so I think we have signatures of our potential throughout our life. If we're feeling stuck, we just have to kind of like dig them out.
Oh, I love that question. I ask that to clients all the time because
Yes.
I don't know if anyone is on this call is surprised, but there might be people listening that might be surprised when I ask a client, like, well, what do you do that is just for you? What do you do for fun? What do you do that fills you up? And a lot of them they're like, what? Does not compute.
Exactly.
Don't
Yeah.
don't know. Don't never
Yeah.
had to think about that before. So I
Hmm.
always go, okay, well, if you can't think of it, what did you do as a child? When was the last time as a child you really felt like, just because it was
Hmm.
fun? And I
Yeah.
was that girl that wrote poetry also. I was
Yeah. Soul
drawing,
sister.
I
Right.
was crafting, I was like making, oh my gosh, when I was a teenager, it was like the height of, I was writing songs that I
Love
don't know where they
it.
are. And thank God, because if I went
Yes.
back and read
They
them,
will
I'd
come
be like,
back.
We
what does
should
this
find them
17-year-old
and
old
put
think
them on
she
the
knows?
Patreon.
But
What
that's how
does
we
she think
express
she knows?
ourselves, right? Through the creative. And I think
Yes.
that's so key. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you like to do as a child? Beautiful question. I really encourage everybody to answer this question for themselves. Your child self knows. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that also we learn the way on the way is one of my favorite. I talk about this in my
I like
books,
that.
and we get so wrapped up and paralyzed in the how, like, how am I going to
Mhm.
get to that person speaking on stages or being a New York Times bestseller when I am living in my parents' basement? Or it's such a drastic change. And all we have to do is recognize that there's a lot of tools we can use, and that's why we listen to the podcasts like this and work with coaches and read the books. But I think overall, it really is about visioning first, right? I'm a
Mhm.
big supporter of manifesting with your mind first. Our thoughts create our results, right? So, what are we focusing on? And I started to focus on the life I wanted, not the life I was currently living.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oof.
I
I
like
got
that.
chills.
Oh, this is deep. I like it.
Mhm.
So, speaking of returning to you, now that we're on the topic perfectly, what do you feel like takes people away from themselves where they have to come back and return to themselves? Like, what is the disconnect that happens or the programming that's instilled that brings us separation from like our
Mm.
core?
You know, that is such a beautiful question. That's why I wrote the book, Return to You, because I feel like we come here on earth to like kind of learn about the illusions of separation. And whether you're studying A Course in Miracles or really deep into spirituality, it really is about returning to the love that we are. And I had fallen away right after my last book came out, Joy Seeker. It's all about joy. I had traveled the world full time, lived the biggest dream in my heart, was writing and teaching retreats on how to find joy in your life. But on book tour, I started having these anxiety attacks that were debilitating. And
Mhm.
anxiety is fear. And so I really think the number one thing that blocks us is we're living in fear, or we're tapping into some type of fear, which is either worry, shame, blame, insecurity. Those are all cousins of fear. And in this space, it was this ego that was yelling at me, like, who do you think you are to be happy when there's so much pain in the world? Like, this is all going to go away. And it was just like the inner meanie, the voice. And so I started to recognize, okay, when we go through things in the Eastern philosophies and the Tao tradition talks about this, what you go through, you must know the opposite. And so I said, if I'm having these anxiety attacks, and this is like a new layer of self, I'm a spiritual teacher, I've written 5 books now, then what is the opposite of this? And I realized it's inner peace. So I was actually in a master's school of inner peace through the contrast. And that set up the whole book. It set up the process. It set up me living the most Zen life through 2020. I wrote the book in 2020 before I even knew anything was coming down the pipe. But it was a real beautiful opportunity because 2020 March hit and I was scheduled to go on back-to-back book all around. It was my first full year world tour. I just signed, like, I call it a world tour, but like, speaking in other countries. And I
Mhm.
signed the final contract. March 11th hit and the world went
Yep.
into like we all remember, right?
Yep.
And all of a sudden it all went away. Like literally contract, my email was like, cancel, cancel. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was literally packing to go on the first trip. And my ego is like, see, it's all going away. And I
Mhm.
caught it within like a nanosecond. I said, no, this is an opportunity to just go deeper and go within. This is what Return to You is. It's about letting go of expectations and arriving to our life as we are. And so I know that's a long way to answer your question, but that's really how the book came about. But if we're boiling it down, I think the number one thing that keeps us from ourself is a worry and fear about what other people think of us. As soon as
Yeah.
we let go of that, we are golden. And
Your
that's why
life
I write my
becomes your
book.
own. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Ooh,
And
I
it's
love
so
that.
beautiful when you live in that authentic space. It's like, okay, you do you. If you don't like me, then that's fine. I'm going to do
Mhm.
me and I'm going to find the people that do like me.
Yes.
Mm.
It's so funny. I have a similar story about like, see, you shouldn't have done this because now the world isn't working anymore. But like, it was
I love
not,
hearing the stories. We
it
all
was
have it. And it's
not a
like,
world tour by any stretch. But I had just developed I committed to myself to like do something for me every week. And so that thing was going to get my nails done and keep up with that.
oh,
And
love
I'd
that.
had like 2 sessions. And on the
World
third
nail
one, I was
tour.
like,
Not going to happen. Yeah.
no.
See, it's
See,
exactly
you
it.
shouldn't take care of yourself because you caused a pandemic now. No. But
Our
yeah, we
mind
all
does
have
that.
we
That's
all
it.
have those kind of stories, but press on nails are a thing for a reason and I was fine.
Yes.
And obviously you were too, so that's fantastic. I love everything that we've been talking about and bringing up has been so, and this happens a lot, so relevant in my life right now. I know Kelsey can probably say the same as well, and a lot of the listeners, but these things tend to happen in themes and in or seasons. I think we talk a lot about seasons on the show as well, where things will come up and you'll be aware of certain themes that you may not have been aware of before. And one of those is for me, like, you don't need to know the how, just keep showing up. Keep showing up and the next step will appear. You don't need to know how to get to the top of the
Yes.
mountain. You just need to know how to get from here to one step forward. And so if that's what you need to ask for, the how, like, help me take this next step, what is the next right thing to do? That's all
Mhm.
you can do, and that's all you're responsible for. That's
Yeah.
all it's none of your business, the rest of it.
It actually gives us opportunity to have the universe deliver what's even better than what we would think a how is.
Exactly.
And that's the
Absolutely.
joy in the journey.
Yes. Oh, that's so good.
And also, can I just say that I love that you're talking about the contrast as
Mm-hmm.
not the enemy, but the vehicle for mastery.
The
Because I think
helper.
in the
Yeah.
world of manifestation, it's so easy to be like, ugh,
I know.
contrast. I thought that if I got good enough at manifesting, nothing bad would ever happen again. And that's like the
Yeah.
ultimate ego lie, right? Like snatching up your spiritual practice and just like
Yep.
spitting it back up at you. But
I
really,
know.
it's true. Like, contrast, there's so much value in it. I always say, like, in the manifestation process, step 0 is experiencing the contrast, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Absolutely.
that's a part of the process. Without that,
Yeah.
you're not going to birth that strong desire. You're not going to have that will, that motivation. You're not going to hit the pain threshold that you might need to hit in order to take that trajectory, like how we were talking about. So I'm really thankful that you brought up the contrast piece because I think it just gets such a bad rap.
It
And I feel
Yeah.
does.
like it
It
doesn't need to
does.
get such a bad rap because there's
Yeah,
value in
there
all of
is.
it.
There's
I
And
a
if not all of
know.
reason.
it is fun.
Yeah.
I love that we're like shouting out to the contrast a little,
Shout
like, hey
out.
man, yeah,
Well,
you
because
got it.
we did come here to experience it all, and that includes the
Yeah,
contrast. Oh my
it's
God,
so
it's
true.
11:11 as we were talking about
Yes. Oh, we
this.
have. I just told someone, yes,
Holy
last
crap.
night about 11:11, and they were blown away. Like, it's the most magnificent
Oh
number
my
on the
God.
planet. So let's just
Yes.
all pause for a moment.
Pause.
Well, it's 11:12 now, but
Okay.
listen.
And then everyone's listening to this after 11:11.
That's okay. You know what? You know what I want to know? The one person that's listening to this at 11:11 and they're like, "Oh my God, it is." Like,
That's great.
it
You are
happened
on
for me.
manifesting like a mogul right now.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. I want to
yeah.
hear from that person, whoever it is.
Message
But
us.
I love when we're doing these episodes, and even as I'm listening back or listening to another podcast, I love finding pieces that I can implement. And one of those, and to have the listeners implement as well. What I heard you say in yet another thing that is so profound is, if you're going through something, you must experience the opposite, which is again in the contrast conversation. So that for me is just so beautiful, because no matter what you're going through, whether it be just a day of feeling like shit or a month or, crying in the
Exactly.
floor of the shower, gosh, whatever,
Yeah.
you, even if you're just aware or acknowledging the fact that, you know what, I am experiencing this now, which means the
Mhm.
pendulum must swing the other way and I will feel the opposite, and then go inward and decide what that opposite is and where you
Yes.
are shooting your rocket of desire or your fishing line or whatever you want to call it, so that you can know that that is bound to happen. We live in a world of equal opposites. We just do. And so you
Yeah.
must experience the opposite. That to me was so beautiful. So remember that, guys. I know I will be.
It's actually a law of the universe, right? The
Yeah.
the opposite and the contrast. The contrast brings clarity if we're willing, and we really want to dive into it. While I was writing the Return to You, my new book, I actually had this like full blown experience of that, where I live in Oregon, but just outside of Portland. And we had wildfires that year. Oregon doesn't get them. California, yes, but
I
you
remember
guys
that.
know, right? And it's a very wet climate. So a lot of us were like, what is going on? But it was so terrifying because I have never been through that. So when you're in something new, that's another thing that keeps us from ourself, out of our comfort zone, or the fear of the unknown. Our mind will take an opportunity to go to worst case scenarios. The sky was like blood orange. We had the
Mhm.
worst air quality of the whole entire world for several days, and it was detrimental. Go outside and breathe the air. I had family friends that lost their home as well, so it was really close. I was panicking, and in that panic, nothing can get done.
Yeah.
And I recognize that that's contrast, but I also remember the quote by Michael Singer. I think it's Michael. It's a famous spiritual quote, and it became a chapter in my book, which is, if we don't go within, we go without. And I literally couldn't go outside, but that was the universe putting us on pause, even collectively. 2020, 2021, go inside, guys, right? Your heart needs you. And I looked at that.
Literally and
Yeah,
figuratively.
all of it. And that's when I was like, wow, okay. And so when I did that, I was able to go into my feelings. And we all have a feeling we're not really wanting to feel in life. And for me, I would run from sadness and hopelessness. I felt helpless and hopeless, but I allowed myself to feel it. And in that experience, it transformed. And then I heard my inner voice. My intuition talks to me through like my voice. And it said, there's more you can do. You can turn your resistance into assistance. So I was resisting what was happening. I was like, I don't want to live in a world where Oregon's burning and we're in this COVID. Like, it was too much. And I said, I'm resisting life, but this is what's happening. And so taking a non-emotional stance and then say, how can I turn this resistance into how can I help? And I immediately went into action. I called my neighbors. I asked if they were okay. I started to call my family. We put together care packages for the people who lost their homes. And it was like the power of guided, inspired action transforms, and it connects us, and it's us living with purpose.
Also, I love all your little rhymes.
I know they're
just
great.
say that?
She's
Can
like
we
in
just
a-
throw that out there? They're
an
so cute.
encyclopedia.
And it's bringing me back to like the image of you as a child writing poetry. I'm like,
I
this
know,
is
I
where
get to
her
be me
poet
as a little
background
kid.
comes in. It's
It's
great.
like it's so funny because some people really make fun of me for it, in my
I think
personal
it's
life. And I'm like,
adorable.
yeah, they help us remember.
Yeah. I love that.
Turn your resistance into assistance. Heck yeah.
Yeah. And you remember it. You're like walking down the street, like, what am I going to do today? Turn my resistance into my assistance.
We can
Hey,
make a
and you
song.
smile at this.
Lindsay
Yeah.
can be in charge of the song aspect.
We all start skipping down the street with our sunflowers.
Oh
That's
my gosh.
great. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this is so funny. You're funny. I like you. Also, I'm just like sitting here in awe because I feel like you are a big mirror for me. And Lindsay knows me really well, so she
Yeah.
knows that there's like a lot of parallels and similarities here.
She's like a conglomeration of your ideals and my geekiness. And I love it. Like your perfect mix. Because I
It's
feel
so
like
fun
you
to
and I
be
are
here with you
connected
guys.
for sure. And as you're speaking, I'm like, dang, that's Kelsey. Like she's
Yeah, we're like soul sisters. We
know.
realize how connected we are too. And I
Yeah.
think the more we share, I kind of made a commitment to early on when I left advertising. I was like, just no holds bar. I've been through stuff and I need to share, and I'm not going to worry about like what people will think because I know someone else
Yes.
has been through it. And that unapologetic focus forward and that authenticity, I think, has really helped connect with people. And, it helps us just live with more integrity.
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to please everyone, you just won't ever
You,
do
you
anything.
can't.
I've been
You'll
learning.
be paralyzed. And
No one's
so
designed to be for everyone, right?
No.
Yeah,
If we
exactly.
can just accept that, it's way easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find too, when you let go of trying to please everyone and you really ask, well, what is it I really align to? The universe, it's like a magnet. You will be rewarded with people of like mind and heart,
yes.
of experiences, of opportunities coming to you that are more aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys noticed that too?
You know what? Yes. And I think Kelsey said it already, like we're learning because we always are. But that happened a lot when I stopped I had such a wide net for clients. I just wanted everybody, even the things I wasn't passionate about. And I was just not fulfilled. And so you always think when you niche down, when you close your scope, you're going to lose people. But in fact, what it does is actually magnetizes the actual right people for you. And I've
Yeah.
never, ever looked back. It was so scary to do though,
Mhm.
because it just seems so counterintuitive, but it's the exact thing that you should do. And a lot of times with whatever I'm going through, I'll get people into my atmosphere or awareness that are going through the same thing. I'm like, huh,
Yeah, we're all
interesting.
mirrors. I know,
Yeah,
exactly. It's the same
that's
with,
interesting.
raising your prices too. I've gone through
Yeah.
this in my own coaching practice. And I think just even if we're not coaches or have an online business, it's just any next level of your life. If there's some meme floating around Instagram, it's always going to require a new level of you. So we just keep showing up. There is no end point. Once I recognized that, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
my whole life changed. My career changed because I was always trying to get to that next, like that next book sale or that next, but once I let go of that, I was like, the journey is where we get to play and
Yeah.
really explore and let go of expectations. When we're in that, it's amazing. The universe gives you more than you ever could have planned in your own mind. So it's
Yeah.
co-creating with the universe and
What
your
you plan
higher self.
is like
It's like,
black and white, is like before Oz, and then what the universe has in store is like when she lands in Munchkin Land without all the munchkins. Maybe there's munchkins.
lots of
Lots of
glitter
color and
and
glitter
gold.
and flowers and songs
Yes,
and
songs and
dancing and
sunflowers.
lollipops. Yes.
And dancing animals.
I didn't know if that would work out when I started saying it, but it seems
It
did.
went. I'm with you. We're
It was a good
on
it was
the
a good
yellow brick
metaphor.
road.
Yeah. I just threw
We're
it and I was
following.
like, we'll see where it lands.
Well, it takes courage, on that. She had to have courage to go into the unknown, and each character represents a virtue. And that's truly, it's a path for all of us.
And it really is appropriate for a lot of things in life, the before versus after. And when you can let go, which is one of the biggest things, the hardest things for people to do.
Mhm.
We are programmed from society pretty much at birth to look outside and find something outside of you and
Exactly.
outside of your
Go for it.
connection to all that is,
Yeah.
buy this thing or have this relationship or eat this food or, whatever.
It's all out there.
It's all
Yeah.
out there. And so to learn how to go back in and to relearn, I would say, remember how to go back in and to really reconnect with yourself is not a small thing.
Mm.
It's not for the faint-hearted, but I don't think anybody's really born faint-hearted. So there's that as well.
Yeah, it's true. In my book, Return to You, there's a chapter, in order to receive, we have to release. And that it talks exactly about that because we have to let go. We say we want something, whether it's a romantic partner, to get out of debt, to start our career doing what we love. But what we have to release is often this, a lot of times, the belief,
Yeah.
oh, the man's not here, or oh, how can I actually make money doing what I love, or how can I, and it's habits, it's letting go of who you were so you can really allow who you are to show up. So I like to find it in the balance. If I feel like I'm not in a state of flow, or I'm not manifesting, or things in my life, I'm getting more of what I don't want than what I want, I always check in with my thoughts. And we've talked about this too, in the power of that. But I check in to see, well, what is it I'm holding on to? And a lot of times I'm holding on to like an insecurity about who am I without this thing, or, and I'm constantly doing the work on myself that I'm writing about and sharing, because the more we do that, the more we can like crack open the onion that we are. And there's just more layers. And it's beautiful when you let go, because then, you can receive that thing you really, really want, or
Yes.
that's for your highest good, which
Can
is
we
usually
talk
the
about
same.
the receiving piece,
Yeah.
especially being a self-love advocate? And I am too. I think what stops a lot of people from receiving is this worthiness piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Absolutely.
I'm wondering your helpful perspective shifts on that for anyone who's listening, who's like, man, I would really love to receive, except I don't feel like I'm deserving of this or whatever it is. What would you say to those people?
There's a lot of reasons why I feel like we live, as we talked about, in a culture that tries to train us out of feeling like we matter. Because if we're putting our attention outside of ourselves, whether it's buying the new thing or adopting the new trend or chasing after something, it's keeping us from our sovereign, true connected to our light is where self-love is. We are love, we are light. And so when we are acting from a place that is not that, it's often that's why we feel bad. And I learned this, and that's why I wrote the book, The Self-Love Experiment, because I used to hate myself. I blamed my body for everything. I've been all shapes and sizes all my life. And it was like this moment where I realized, if I can love myself, that's one less person suffering on the planet. That's one less person putting negativity out in the world. That's me doing my part to help uplift. And I'm going to show up for me. So my number one mission, tunnel vision, I'm going to learn how to love myself. And as I did that, I recognized that so many of us don't feel worthy because it's been given to us. You're not worthy. When I realized that's not really my belief, it's something that was assigned to me by kind of the world we're in. It was a lot easier to disconnect with, because I recognize, number one, self-love is not selfish. It's the most important thing you can do on the planet, because when you love yourself, you choose joy, you choose happiness, you choose health. And in this place, you're putting more love in the world, and everyone around you starts to resonate with that too.
Yeah.
And so it's like this, it's a profound mindset shift. And so if we're sitting here saying, I don't feel worthy of love, recognize even asking that question is loving. You're already on the self-love path. If you're not asking that question, then you're not even in that space yet. And so that means you're on the journey. Keep following where your heart is guiding you. Maybe it's guiding you to work with one of the coaches or go into another podcast or write, right? So it's all connected. Yeah.
Anything that gets you to know yourself more. Because
Yes.
I truly believe to my cellular structure that you cannot know yourself and not love yourself. Like those two things are very much intertwined. If you know yourself, you can't help but love yourself, because you're a beam of light on this planet. You're a magnificent, brilliant pillar of just joy and love. And how can you not love that? So
It's so
if
amazing.
there's that disconnect, it's because you just don't know yourself. Maybe you just,
And so
and that's why you need her book. Go get her book, guys.
And that's the path to know yourself and know that it's safe to be you. I think a lot of this comes when we're talking about inner peace, which is what Return to You is about, being you and feeling safe in a world that often makes you feel unsafe. It's so often that we can't be loving to ourselves if we feel like when we did do that when we were younger and it was infringed on. So a lot of the times we have periods where we were free, happy, like I was made fun of and bullied, so I disconnected from that part. I stopped writing for 15 years of my life and I came back to me. And so it's really about a rejoining, knowing that you matter, and it's important to show up for you and what you love. Sometimes I will say it's really hard. Sometimes I have a self-love retreat that I lead based on the book, The Self-Love Experiment. A lot of times people come to the experience and they don't love themselves, right? They don't feel worthy. We start with, well, what do you enjoy? Give yourself permission there, because when you do what you love, you're giving yourself permission to be in joy. And that's an experience of love. The more you do that each day, whether it's just, I'm going to take 5 minutes today to call a friend or cuddle with my friend or start a podcast. This is self-love in action. It's not always like the bubble balm baths and meditation. Like that's fine, but that's the self-care part. The joy part is where I like to activate people, because that ignites a fire in our soul where we're like, I am here to live my life on purpose.
You are speaking my language, girl. I'm always saying, like, the number one people, if I had to like look at a sea of people and decide and like discern which ones love themselves and which ones don't, it's just the ones who are going towards joy and happiness and giving themselves that permission. Like that's the number one thing that separates a self-loving person, quote unquote, from a non-self-loving person, is that they go in that direction. Like choosing joy is loving yourself in action, like how you said. And the self-care comes natural when you're someone who loves yourself. You don't have to work really hard at the self-care part. You'll naturally take good care of yourself when you love yourself. So start with the self-lovery. That's what I always say. Anyway,
I love that. The self-lovery. Yeah.
I've never heard of a valid excuse not to do something that you enjoy. Because, people will say, well, I don't have time, or like I have 3 boys and really they fill up every moment, especially on summer vacation. But that's still not an excuse to take 5 minutes, as you said. 5 minutes, guys. There's no reason on this planet that you cannot take 5 minutes. I don't care how many kids you have.
It's true. 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes.
Or what kind of job you have, or gosh, whatever. 5 minutes to just go be. Just go be.
Absolutely. It's one of those life advancement courses, like the forum and stuff. They talk about we always have enough time, money, and energy for what's most important to us.
Yep.
So
True.
if we're just saying that, then that means we're not putting ourselves, we don't think we're important. So you want to look there and say, okay, well, why don't I feel important? Who told me in my life I wasn't important? And then it starts to really get clear, like, wow, I've been carrying a belief that's not even mine. I am important. I deserve to feel joy. And that's, it's a beautiful existence when you step into that. And it's a layered,
Amen.
as we're talking, it's not like my self-love journey gets richer and deeper and more rewarding every year. And I feel like there's no end. And when I first sat, I'm going to find self-love. I'll wake up every day and love myself. Like, that's not really what it is. It's about being so committed to yourself and your growth and knowing yourself, like you said, and we're always growing. So to know yourself is to keep committing to yourself.
Just the general rule we always talk about on the show is like self-evolution, self-love, manifesting, gosh, whatever. You're never done. When you're done, you're dead. So if you're alive, there's work to be done.
Yeah.
Ladies and gents.
Another
it's an
rhyme
adventure,
for the
right?
books today.
And it's beautiful because there's still so much more to I don't care how far you are in your self-love journey or your inward journey. There's so much more to you that you haven't discovered yet.
It's just
so
like exciting.
The best treasure chest ever, because it's just like it's bottomless.
I love it. I feel like we're having tea and hanging out. This is like this is the stuff I love talking about.
We're all about geeking out on the journey.
Yes.
And just
that's
bonding
the name of the
over
podcast.
how crazy it is.
Geeking out on
honestly.
we need t-shirts.
Yes.
Merchandise. I'm a geek for the journey, y'all.
It's
well,
our new
that's what we say
hashtag.
today when we're
Community.
in a good mood. But then like when you're on the lower parts of the journey, you're like, curse this journey.
The contrast.
The contrast. I hate this effing contrast. Damn it. Oh, the contrast.
It's so beautiful. Hey, so I have I was gonna say I have unshakable inner peace oracle cards, and they're like calling to me to pick a card. Can I do that?
I was
for you
just
guys?
about to cue that.
They're
Okay,
like
so here's how we're gonna do
calling to
it.
me.
So I want to like orchestrate this in the way that I envisioned it. So first, let's just give a little tease that we're going to pull a card over on the Patreon because we love pulling cards for our Patreon peeps. So if you don't listen on Patreon or like watch the extended video versions of the podcast, they're always longer over there. You can go to patreon.com/highvibe. And that is where Miss Shannon is going to pull from her beautiful deck a card for us today. Usually Lindsay and I pull, but we asked her to do it since she has her own deck. Say the name of the
cards.
Unshakable inner peace.
I'm looking at
and they're all gold.
Are they on Amazon? Where should I buy them?
Yeah, they are. And I designed them and wrote them. So I'm excited to pull one for you guys.
Okay, yes. So we're going to get to that in 1 second. But first, please tell everyone where they can read your gorgeous books and how they can connect with you and come on your retreats and all the things.
This is the new book, Return to You. It's out now, and I obviously am available at bookstores and Amazon. All my books, Shannon Kaiser. My website is playwiththeworld.com, and you can go there. I'm on social media. Shannon Kaiser writes for my author pages, and I'd love to connect.
Yay. Thank you for being here. This is so great. We're going to head over to the Patreon. Everyone, connect with Shannon. I would say for anyone who likes my vibe, you're probably going to love Shannon's vibe. We have a lot of similar messages coming through. So yeah, just have a great day. Have a great week. Lindsay, any parting words for the peeps?
Love ya.
Yay. Have a good
Here
one.
for ya.
Bye,
supporting ya.
Thank you.
Hey there. We hope you're enjoying this episode so far, but if you want to listen to the whole thing, we're going to invite you over to our podcast. Either search for High Vibing It on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to podcasts, or even better, if you want to watch the extended video version of this episode that's even longer than the actual podcast itself, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/highvibe. Lindsay, tell them what's awesome about the Patreon.
Patreon is where we have all of our extended episodes. As Kelsey said, we have it on video, so you can actually see the things that we're talking about. Sometimes we have visual aids, and it's nice to know what we're talking about. We also have hangouts that we do sometimes that are exclusive to Patreon people. And you can get started with all of this and bonus content and everything that we have only for the Patreon people for as little as $3. I think it's $3.33 a month. And that's it. And you guys can get all the benefits and all access to everything that we put in there. Really cool.
It's really cool, really fun, super easy to join. And you guys don't even have to do that to finish this episode. If you're like, screw it, I don't want to pay any money, I just want to hear the rest of this episode, go to our podcast, High Vibe in It, search for it wherever you listen. It's totally free. Either way, enjoy the rest of the show wherever you choose to enjoy it. And we will see you guys next week because we do a new one every week. Adios.
Bye.